Welcome to Pieces of the Past. My name is Deborah. I have a passion for fiber arts and creating new things from old. Join me on my journey as I explore the endless possibilities, the tools, and the techniques to create new pieces of the past. Today's video is going to be all about how to cut up your scraps not using a rotary cutter or scissors. We're going to look at two different types of cutting machines that you can use to make it faster and I want to say easier, but we'll go over that in a little while, to cut up maybe long strips of fabric, cut up squares of fabric, that kind of thing. So let's get started. The two types of machines that I want to show you are the Stylus type, the Stylus cutting machine, and the die cutting machine. Now, the Stylus type machine is a machine that has what I call a stylus. It's a razor blade, or in some instances you can get an actual little bitty rotary cutter blade to go in your machine, and it's hooked up to your machine is hooked up to your computer, and you tell the computer, I want to cut this, and you can cut a specific square, a specific triangle, whatever, okay? And that sends that information to your machine, and your machine will cut it out for you, so you don't have to do it by hand, okay? There are several of these out there. The main brands that you can find are the Brother Scan and Cut, the Sizer Juliet, and the Cricut. Now, the Cricut comes in all different sizes, and you can get what's called a Joy, which is a very small one, up to a Maker, which is the largest one that they sell. I think we're on the Maker 3 now. I chose to go with the Maker 3, and I'll show you that machine is right here. So this machine opens up like this, okay? And it has a stylus right here, which in this case is a blade, 45-degree fine point blade. There's a blade in there. And you snap that in, you tell the computer what you want to cut using their software, and then you send it to this machine and it will cut. Now, to use this machine, you would use these mats, okay? There are different ones. This is a standard grip mat, a strong grip mat, and you would put I'll show you this one. It's sticky, see? You can put your fabric on here, run it through your machine, comes out the other side, and then you would just pull your pieces off. The pros to this type of machine are that it reduces the fatigue on your hands, so you're not having to cut triangle after triangle with your hand. And for me, with arthritis in my thumb now, that's great. You can cut anything that you see on your computer screen, which is really nice because you can do appliques. So you can do flowers and leaves and things like that. You can cut out leaves and then take them over to your quilt and applique them on, right? You can cut multiples, but you have to cut them one at a time, okay? So if you wanted to cut, let's say the same square, but you needed 20 of them, you would just, on your screen, put 20 of those squares next to each other, and the machine would cut them all out all at once. This machine is really better suited for one-off patterns like bag makers. Bag makers use it a lot. You can cut leather with this machine. You can cut key fobs, okay? If you're cutting a bag, you're only going to need one zipper panel, one back panel, one flap, etc. So this machine is great for that. I don't use this machine so much for cutting out my quilting scraps. I use it more for cutting out iron-ons for my shirts and leather things that I'm only going to cut one or two of, that kind of thing. Greeting cards, I mean, it does a lot, and this video is not about what this machine does. So I'm going to quickly put this one away and show you the others. But it is good for cutting fabric. It does do that, and you can, if you buy, say, a bag pattern, a lot of times it will come with the cutting files for that bag, and which you would just send from your computer to this and cut all your pieces for your bag at once and you're done. You know, that's great. So that's what this is used for. One thing I do like about this machine over the other type, which I'm about to show you, is that you don't have to purchase any additional dies, okay? I'll get to what dies are in a minute, but you have this blade here, or the rotary cutter blade, which is this one, and it'll go dull, and you may have to buy another one of these, but you don't have to buy a brand new die for every square size you want. So if you wanted a 2-inch square or a 3-inch square or a 4-inch square, you would just tell the computer to do that size. You don't have to go buy a specific 2-inch square die, a 3-inch square die, etc. Okay, so this machine is very versatile in that it will cut what you see on the screen. The cons of it tends to waste fabric. So if you are cutting out a specific applique out of a specific fabric, it's great for that. But keep in mind, when you cut that one leaf out of your fabric, you're going to have this other piece that's on here that you're going to pull off, and it's going to be a scrap. Okay, which is not a waste necessarily, but it would not do away with the scrap that you had, okay, to begin with. It is not really useful for cutting long strips. So if you're going to cut binding, for example, for your quilt, I would not use this machine because there is a way to make it cut long strips, but it's a pain. And so it's good for cutting small pieces or pieces that are about 24 inches long. The price of these machines over the die cutting machines, they tend to be more expensive. Mainly because they hook up to your computer and they're smart, you know, they have internal computers of their own, and etc. So they're not manual, and you have to have a computer to operate this machine. Either a computer or an iPad. I can use this machine with my iPad and my phone too. So the software and the technology is out there to use these machines, but you have to know how to use your computer or your iPad or whatever to operate it. So that is what I call the Stylus type cutting machines. So now let's go to the die cutting type machines, okay? So this right here is my die cutting machine. This machine is a manual machine. Die cutting machines are manual machines. Now I say manual, they can plug into electricity, but they're not connected to a computer. There are two that I picked out that are the big name brands, okay? One is the AccuQuilt, which is sold only by AccuQuilt. Then there's the Sizzix brand, which is sold on Amazon and pretty much everywhere. To me, they're both equal. You can get more dies with the AccuQuilt, but the AccuQuilt is more expensive, and it's marketed specifically to quilters. This is how this machine works. It's not connected to a computer. It has rollers. I'll open this up. It has rollers in here that press down really hard when it pulls the die through from one side to the other. Okay, these are the dies. They have long ones, and this is going to be the same as in the AccuQuilt. They just look different, but it's the same concept, same process. This is my 3.5 inch strip, all right? And I don't know if you can see this on the video, but in this foam down in here, there's a blade, okay? It stops right here and goes across, so it's a rectangular blade all the way down in there, okay? You can't really hurt yourself if you grab it because the foam is really thick. You'd have to grab it really hard, so it's not real dangerous. Anyway, this goes in here, sandwiched between two plates. You slide it through, and I'm going to demonstrate in just a minute. You slide it through, you turn this on, and it shoots it through the other side, okay, like this. And then you have a perfectly cut rectangle. You can also use square dies. These little guys, I have these marked so I can see where the indentions are. These are my squares, okay, that I use quite a bit. And then I have hexagons too. I don't know if you can see that. These are two different sizes of hexagons. You can see it's pretty obvious that if you buy this type of machine to cut your scraps and you buy this die, you're only going to be able to cut this size hexagon, okay? Not any other size hexagon, just this one. That's why I have 2 hexagons, okay? There's a lot of dies out there, but you have to purchase them individually. So the AccuQuilt comes with a lot more of the dies when you first buy it, but you're paying for them because the AccuQuilt system is more expensive. Now let's go through the pros of this type of machine. It also reduces the fatigue on your hands because you're cutting things without having to push down with your hands on a rotary cutter. It's great for that. The good thing that I like about this, and the reason I use this more than the Cricut for cutting my fabrics, is that I can cut multiple layers at one time. So I can stack up about 6 to 8 layers of fabric on this and cut all the rectangles out all at the same time. It is good for cutting out long strips. I cut my binding for my quilts with this. There's no computer required. We went over that, and it's typically cheaper than the Stylus type machine. All right, the cons. It does, and people will say it does waste fabric, okay? Because to cut this hexagon out, you're going to need a piece of fabric that's bigger than this hexagon. You're going to cut it out, and then you're going to toss basically the outside edges. In my opinion, you're going to toss that anyway if you were to cut a hexagon with your rotary cutter out of this. Okay, I don't see it as wasting fabric. Now, sure, if you use a huge piece of fabric and you throw out all the excess that you could have gone back and cut 2-inch squares out of, maybe that's a waste. I don't know. But for me, it doesn't really waste fabric. It saves more time than it wastes fabric. So I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. The last thing about this, you cannot cut out specific shapes. Like if you're doing an applique like I explained on the other machine, you can't cut out a specific leaf, okay, that you designed on your computer. You have to cut out only what is provided. Now there may be leaf dies out there that will cut your fabrics, but it's going to be that leaf over and over and over and over, okay? So you really wouldn't go out and buy a die, I wouldn't anyway, for that specific leaf unless I really, really liked that leaf, okay? So in that case, for applique, I would go over to my Stylus machine and cut out those leaves that I wanted, okay? But it's really, really good for strips and squares and hexagons and things like that because you can cut a bunch at a time. I was cutting up my fabrics the other day for my scraps, and I got to where I always cut my strips last. So I'm cutting off these big hanging out things, and I'm cutting out squares and whatever with my rotary cutter. And then I have all these leftover strips that I've cut off that I basically put on here to cut. So let's look at that. I got some strips here, and I will pick out some. So let's see, this is my 3.5-inch die. So I think you can see this on the video. You can see the indentions there. That's where the blades are. So as long as this piece will fit, now see, it only fits from here to here. Close this. It only fits from here to here on the 3.5-inch. So I'm going to save this one for my 2.5-inch die. All right. This one, let's see, not that one. Okay, this one, I can cut 3.5-inch. See, it goes all the way over both edges, okay? And it doesn't hang off the ends, so that's great. Here's another one we have to put on top of there. All right. And this one's a little wide. I'll deal with that later. Here's one. Now, this one has parts, it's too long. Okay, let me move this back to show you. Okay, so in this case, on a die cutting machine, when it's too long, I usually will fold it over, trying to get it as perpendicular as possible to these two lines at the bottom, so it'll cut all the way off of that. Okay, I'll go through these and cut my 3.5, and then I'll drop down a size. I've got a 2.5 and a 2. Now for this one, see, this is a a fairly wide piece of fabric, I will put it, well, see, there's a selvage, so I save selvages. You know that if you've watched my videos. So I will cut off that selvage with my rotary cutter real quick. Doesn't have to be straight, just whatever. Okay, put that back there. And then I will put this folded in half over my, ooh, it's going to be close. Yeah, that may not get it. Okay, so you can do this so that it goes over that one blade. Okay, and what you're going to be left with is this smaller strip that you can then put on your 2.5 or 2-inch die and cut it out. Okay, to cut these, and you can see my plexiglass is very, very cut. So you can get new ones of these as well. One goes underneath. Okay. One goes on top to hold it all down. All right. Move this over here out of the way a little bit because I've got to have the full length here. Okay. You slide this in here. Okay. There's no turning it on or turning it off. It's basically on because it's plugged in. And I'm going to push this button right here. And it's going to pull it through. It does make noise because it's very mechanical. And that's it. It will go both directions. Now you can get this machine, or the die cutting machines, in electric, which is plugged in where you just push the button, or you can get the manual where they have a crank on the side and you just crank the crank and the thing feeds through, the die feeds through. Either way is great. I like the electric because then it, more hand fatigue I don't have to deal with. So then you slide this off the top. These are your pieces, and sometimes it won't cut the top one on occasion. So that's okay. There we go. Okay, so you pull away that one. And this one over here. Okay, so there are my 3.5-inch strips of fabric. This one is the one I folded over, so now it's long and straight. And these two. So I just cut 4 strips, 3.5 inches wide, just like that. And now if I need 3.5-inch squares sometime, all I have to do is take these strips out and cut my squares out of them. Or if I need strips this wide, I've got them right here. Okay. So that is the difference in the 2 types of machines out there that will cut for you. They range in price. The Stylus machines, the Cricut, the Sizer, and the Brother. The Brother Scan and Cut was $3.99 this morning. The Sizer Juliet was $3.99. The Cricut Joy was $1.99. And the Cricut Maker, which is the one you just saw here, was $6.99. And that's standard price. And then when you move over into the die cutting machines, which are the manual ones that don't connect to the computer, the AccuQuilt Go starts at $3.29, and the Sizzix Big Shot, which is a little bit of a step above what I have because I've had mine for several years, the Sizzix Big Shot is $1.89. So they're a little less than the computer-driven ones. Okay, and I think that is all I had to share with you today. Since my last video, which was like a week ago, we have had about 200 more subscribers. So we're getting closer and closer and closer to the 10,000. And we are going to do a mystery quilt. I'm guessing it's going to start in January. But we'll see when we get to the 10,000. So if you like this video and it gave you a little bit more information on what these machines are, if you've never seen them before, or if you just enjoyed watching it, give me a thumbs up. That'd be great. And if you haven't, subscribe so we can get closer to doing that mystery quilt. I'm super excited about that. Until next time, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.